I found someone who figured out how to lose weight while on prednisone. And she volunteered to come tell us her story, what she's doing to cope with the side effects of prednisone. All the prednisone warriors out there, meet Joy. Joy, tell us, what are you taking prednisone for?
I am taking it for myasthenia gravis, which I was diagnosed with in June. I started out on 10 milligrams the middle of June, and I knew I had taken prednisone before, just like in an asthma inhaler thing. I forget what that was called, Advair, and I gained like 30 pounds. So I was a little worried about taking prednisone. That was the reason I quit taking that medicine, because I already was overweight, and an extra 30 pounds was horrible.
Yeah.
So I was worried about it. So I did kind of change my diet. I started eating a lot of leafy greens, cut out bread, rice, pretty much all the starchy vegetables and, the usual carbs. I do have a horrible sweet tooth. It's really hard for me to avoid sugary things and also salty snacks. So I just tried hard to not have those around. But my husband also likes to have things in the house to eat. So I didn't really want to totally curb his choices. So anyway, I did really well. The first month I was on 10 milligrams and I lost 10 pounds. And
Wow.
then the next month I was on 20 milligrams and I lost another 10 pounds. And so I thought, okay, this is really good. I can do this. I was mostly eating cooked greens with eggs in the morning. Sometimes I make it into like a pancake or something, but usually just scramble eggs into the greens after I cook them. And then I use a little balsamic glaze to
Mm.
kind of help the taste. And it actually adds a little acid, which I think helps get some of the nutrients out of the greens. So that's basically still every breakfast. I always start out good. And then I try to have a big salad for lunch. And I'm not really a big fan of salad. So that doesn't always work. But I try to eat healthy, but I don't limit the amount of food pretty much that I'm eating. I'm trying to eat more the types of foods that I eat, basically avoiding bread, avoiding starchy things. I've found I'll snack on like a nut and dried fruit mix that I've just kind of made myself with like the heart healthy nuts, and it has like dried tart cherries and dried cranberries, and I mean they have some sugar in them. I've cut up dried apricots and different things into it. Sometimes I'll put in prunes or figs, whatever kind of looks good to me at the time. I figure a little bit of assortment and change it up a little whenever I refill my little bin. So I try to snack on that because that's more what I consider a healthy snack. But I'll still want chips if they're in the house. I pretty much don't buy candy, but like Kind bars are mostly nuts, and they have like a dark chocolate one that tastes like I'm eating candy. And I'll also put like dark chocolate chips into my snack mix, and just not a lot of them. So I can just, one dark chocolate chip and one hazelnut tastes kind of like a candy.
Yeah, it does.
So that kind of strategy to just limit the sweet stuff. And then just, I don't know, then on 30 milligrams, which is the amount that seems to stabilize my myasthenia gravis, I haven't been able to lose weight. I have stayed stable. I think I lost a couple pounds during the time that I was taking the supplement for a month. And then for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been not on the supplement, which I just reordered because I do feel a difference. So it'll be interesting to see if I can maybe pay a little more attention to less giving into temptation. I might be able to do better with getting back on the losing track. But at this point, if I can stay under 200 pounds, I'm happy. And
Yeah.
I'm right around that. So,
So tell
um,
us, where did you start?
well, I used to weigh like 223 most of the time, and I had already started losing some. I think I weighed 215 when I was in the hospital in June. And then I got down under, I think I was at 195 after my second neurology appointment.
That's amazing.
And I actually could notice my face was thinner. And
Yeah.
that was even after 2 months of the 10 milligram and 20 milligram prednisone. But then I went on vacation and I decided, well, I'm on vacation, I'm just going to eat whatever we're having, and it's always hard to go back whenever you let loose with the diet. It's hard to then get back onto a really steady,
Yeah. I mean,
you know,
isn't it true that the most important day of a diet is the day after you mess up or let loose, right?
yes,
That's the
yes,
most important
because all the
day.
cravings are back 100%.
Yeah.
Whereas 2 months of not eating like any sweets, I didn't crave sweets. And then when we were on vacation, we had, we were up in the mountains and we had huckleberry cheesecake, and we made a bunch of, really good food up there. And it was fun. I had all my kids. I have 4 grown children and some grandkids, and I had a couple of nephews and, mostly family up there. It was really a fun trip. And then after that, we had a weekend that I spent it with my son and his family at a lake that her family has property at. So I had several times where I just said, I'm just going to have time off from my normal routine.
Yeah.
So
you were at 223 before diagnosis, at diagnosis 215. And despite being on 10 and then 20 milligrams of prednisone, you still lost 20 pounds. But then your vacation, it went back up to
it went up to like 207.
uh-huh.
And then I think that's about when I started taking your supplement.
Okay.
And then I think today it was like, I don't know, 205 or something. It's like I'm right around the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, okay, well, I should try and get back down under 200. And ideally, I think I'm happy like at 170, but I haven't been that since my daughter, who's like 26. So
you were 207 before, and then you took Nutrinizone, which is the supplement I invented, and you did an experiment, right? Like the idea was, if you're taking such an amazing diet, healthy, fresh foods, cutting out the salty and sugary stuff, can you maintain your weight or maybe lose some if you combine it with this? And what the real big difference is that you went up to 30 milligrams. And normally people have no choice but to gain weight at 30 milligrams. And you didn't. That's amazing.
So I'm pretty happy with the fact that I stayed stable.
Yeah. That's a win.
And I lost a couple pounds, so yeah. I do consider, and I actually cheated a lot more during that month because I was hungry because of the higher dose of prednisone.
Yeah.
So if I was more careful about not buying chips, or tell my husband to keep them in back room, I might do better that way too. Because the salty things definitely make my face puff.
Yeah. So you shared some pictures of your face throughout the month of taking it.
Yes, and they're all first thing in the morning.
First thing in the morning. That was brave. So you just briefly mentioned, but what pattern did you notice as far as what?
I kind of noticed sometimes it would be kind of seem like just this side that was puffy. And I don't know if that's the side I was sleeping on or what, or the side that was up. I don't know how that works, but I did notice more puffiness after a day when I ate too much salt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I figured that makes sense.
That salt is really rough. If you are taking that high of a dose of prednisone, your body's not very good at dealing with it. So you noticed it made you puffier when you had more salt. Yeah. So what you shared already is powerful, that cutting out salt helps make moon face go down. Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables helped you lose weight. If people are actually listening right now, this is a gold mine. What you've done is stunning to be where you are at 30 milligrams. So tell us, you took this for a month. What did you notice while you were taking it?
I didn't really notice a huge difference while I was taking it. I still have the hot flashes, the shaky hands, I was writing down I get cracks on my fingers. And I did before I was taking it. And toward the end, I did think they were healing up a little better. And since I quit taking it now for the last few weeks, I feel like they're worse. So it probably was helping with that. And a lot of the issues I have, I don't know sometimes if it's the myasthenia or the prednisone that's causing. I'm assuming that that supplement would help no matter which is causing it. I do feel like, I mean, the what I've looked at, I feel like that is the stuff that I should be taking. I've looked at other vitamin supplements. I used to work for drugstore.com, and one of the people I used to work with, it's no longer a thing. He has a vitamin supplement he's selling on Amazon, and I went and checked it out, and I'm like, no, this isn't going to work for me. I'm just going to order the Zone again and get back on it.
So you notice your fingers, they weren't as good after stopping it. Anything else you were like, I can tell there was a difference while on it?
Seems like my hot flashes are worse or more often since I quit taking it, even though I felt like it wasn't helping with hot flashes because I was still having hot flashes. And I talked to you about, maybe it had to do with stopping estrogen, but I feel like I had stopped estrogen months before and I wasn't having any hot flashes. So I feel like it's the disease and the prednisone. And I have this, I sent you a picture of my ice pack. This goes like this. As soon as I feel a hot flash coming on, I'm wearing this until it gets warmed up and then it goes back in the freezer. And usually about the amount of time it takes for it to reach, get so it's not cold anymore is about, by then the hot flash has passed. And then it's just weird how I'll be this roasting hot and then pretty soon I'm like, oh no, I need to put the sweater back on.
Yes. Yeah. Prednisone does weird things to your temperature, and it's tricky because it could be the prednisone, it could be the myasthenia, it could be what the prednisone is doing to your thyroid.
And I also have a thyroid. I have a Hashimoto thyroid.
Okay. Okay. So this is so awesome. We can talk about this right now. So prednisone can affect your thyroid. So even if you were stable on a dose before you took prednisone, you might not be now. So the fact that you have Hashimoto's and you're taking prednisone means your doctor needs to check your TSH, your T3 and T4 blood levels to make sure that it's still good right now, because that high of a dose of prednisone can really throw off your thyroid. And so it doesn't happen to everyone, but it sounds like
that could be the shaky hands too, because I've had shaky hands from my thyroid being too high.
Yeah.
In the past. I've been taking thyroid since I was like 30.
Yeah. Okay. So I would recommend everybody who takes prednisone and has a thyroid issue or is having weird thyroid symptoms like temperature issues, shaky hands, that type of thing, that you get your blood tested around 6 to 8 weeks after you change your dose of prednisone to see, is it affecting your thyroid or not? Because it's a really simple solution to a lot of these problems.
I should definitely get mine checked again because it's been a while.
Yeah. And it's cheap. Like the thyroid medicines are so cheap. Okay. So you have shared some amazing tips. I know you've gone through some complicated, stressful times as well at home and still been dealing with it and like still not gained weight. A lot of people deal with stress by eating. And so that is complicating things as well. So you've got your thyroid making things complicated. You've got that higher dose and you've got stress in your life. And so the fact that you have kept it off is fantastic. What would you say to fellow prednisone warriors about, like, if there was one thing they could do differently based on your experience so far?
One thing to do differently? I feel like changing the diet for me, I ate so many vegetables growing up that I just was like, when I became an adult, made my own choices, I did make good choices. And this is what it took for me. It's like, I want to see my grandkids grow up. I don't want to, die young. I'm in my 60s. So that was one thing I decided was I am going to start eating leafy greens. And every day I eat, I buy a big bag of Costco Power Greens if my garden isn't producing, which it was a lot during the summer. But I'll buy that big bag and go through it in 3 or 4 days.
Wow. Like, you're not kidding. You're serious.
I'm not kidding. I cut up a big handfuls of greens until I've filled a bowl. heaping, kind of, and then I cook them down, and they go down to, much smaller when you cook them.
Mhm.
But I try to not cook them past when they're still green. They're not brown,
Yeah, they're not
overcooked
mush.
spinach. And then I do feel like I cook them in a little bit of either I top up a little bit of bacon or a little bit of butter or even just some MCT oil or whatever I've got, because the oil is supposed to help them break down. And then also the acid from, like I said, the balsamic glaze, which is a little bit sweet, but it doesn't, it adds a lot of flavor because I don't really like the taste, although they're grown on me a lot. After a couple months of eating greens, I actually look forward to my healthy breakfast. And
Isn't
then
that
I'll either just throw in
interesting?
a couple of eggs, just kind of poach them in with the greens, or I'll put them in kind of scrambled in with the greens, make it like an omelet. There's only so many ways you can do it, but I've recently found out if I put a little Swiss cheese in there, it tastes basically like a quiche, only crustless and not custardy, but the flavor's there. So
Oh, the
it's like
flavor's there. Yeah,
yeah.
great alternative to that salty.
So even though I've kind of limited dairy, I still do some cheese and some yogurt, and I'll still use some milk in cooking and baking. I found this one really good recipe for oatmeal bread, which it just uses whole grain rolled oats, and there's no flour in it. It has yogurt and a little bit of like fake sweetener, which I've sometimes just put in a little bit of sugar if I didn't have the fake sweetener. But it's only like 2.5 tablespoons of sugar in a
Oh,
loaf of bread, which now I've been making it in a casserole and putting more fruit in it. And my husband calls it cobbler because I put like a little bit of cinnamon and crushed pecans on the top. And it is way healthier than cobbler.
that sounds delicious. Like
So
a
I just found that on YouTube, just kind of,
yeah.
it popped up in whatever the feed. And I don't normally watch things that pop up, but it just looked interesting. And I watched it and went, oh, okay. Like chop up an apple, throw in some blueberries. I've tried it with pretty much any fruit I had on hand. And I do tend to eat berries more because that's another thing I do is I have a list of like the superfoods with the healthiest fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, all those things. And so I've added those things in as much as I can.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about getting those nutrients into your body because
Yeah.
prednisone is stealing them out. And so you were doing a really good job of replenishing what prednisone is stealing through just food alone. And so a lot of people haven't made that transition yet. And your first 2 months alone are testament that when you're giving your body what it needs while on prednisone, you can lose weight, you can keep it off, but it's really hard when the chips are there, when the spouse insists on his normal food.
Yeah.
Mine's the same way. And so I love what you've shared, that there's really fantastic ways that you get used to the greens, right? Like you actually start to appreciate them and look forward to eating them because your palate changes, right?
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
cut out that salt, you cut out that sugar, and you can actually taste the nuances instead of them being hidden below all of those layers of sugary and saltiness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, the more I eat the healthy stuff, the better it tastes. The other day I harvested squash out of my garden, buttercup squash, which I grew up with, more of a dry squash. And I roasted them and just like ate a chunk of squash for lunch. And it does have more like glycemic load than what I would normally eat for lunch, but it tasted so good and I hadn't had it for a long time. So that's
And
all I
that
ate
was,
for lunch.
yeah.
And
And
I
I
thought, okay,
think
it's got plenty of the yellow, orange, category of vitamins.
right, because prednisone is stealing vitamin A, which was probably in there, and other vitamins that you need and that are in that delicious food. Yes, the glycemic index is there, but you're eating it whole. So you're also getting the fiber that slows down the release of all of that sugar. So
Right.
when you're eating
And
that
I
whole food,
I used to eat that with butter and brown sugar, and I just ate it just the way it came out of the oven, and it tasted good. So I do think my taste buds have changed.
yeah, I mean, they do. Your taste buds do change. Like it's fantastic to hear this coming from you. Like even though you've got the high dose prednisone craving saying, eat salt, eat sugar, you're like, I'm just going to eat my squash and it's going to taste good without extra salt or sugar. That's awesome.
I also make a lot of soup. Just, well, you probably weren't around in the 80s. There was a diet soup that was popular. It's just mostly broth and vegetables. It has cabbage in it. And my mother-in-law found the recipe and gave it to me, and I started making that, and my husband likes it. I add in sweet potatoes because he likes sweet potatoes in it. But I didn't make it during the summer because I wasn't cooking in the house. But now that the cooler weather has come, I'm making that at least once a week, a big pot of it. And then I just put it in glass jars in the fridge, and he'll eat that like for days and not complain about anything new. It's like I don't like to cook every day now that I'm old.
Seriously, I mean,
So,
you don't need
and I
to
can eat
cook
that
every
too,
day.
and it's healthy. It's just, it doesn't, I don't change it up much. I mostly just have it the way he likes it, and then I'll eat it if that's, it's there, and I can just put some in a bowl and heat it up.
Wonderful. Wow. It sounds like we need a recipe book from you.
Well, I guess there will be a
Delicious.
comment section somewhere at some point I can stick it in.
Awesome. Awesome. This is great. And we have to know where you got your cooling ice pack thing.
My daughter gave it to me, so I
Okay.
don't know where it came from, but it is like velour on one side. It has the elastic strap, and then it has these little beads of ice in it.
Uh-huh.
It works great. I used to use it for migraines, and now I use it for hot flashes. So it goes, I used to put it more over my eyes, and now I just put it right on my kind of hairline, because that's where the hot flash hits, is right at my hairline. And I'll feel like I'm burning up. I'll feel like I got 102-degree fever or something.
Yeah. Yeah,
And it
that's
just happens so fast. It just comes on like a freight train.
I definitely remember those days when I was on prednisone. It was like, I am 30 something. Why am I having like bright red flushed cheeks, like suddenly melting, and the air conditioner's on? Like everybody else in the house is freezing. What is going on?
Yeah. I keep my temperature, my thermostat is set at 64 during the day. So it's not hot in my house.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, those hot flashes are wicked. And I mean, men on prednisone get to enjoy them too. So it's like, hey, good luck. Now you know what it feels like to be a woman going through the transition.
Yeah, and it's similar, but they're different than the hot flashes I had, during the menopause thing. But I'm getting used to them, and I just keep my ice pack handy. Once in a while, like in the night, I'll wake up with a hot flash. And here, it's cold in the house at night now, and I'll be throwing all the covers off and just, like sitting up or like going out on the front porch just to
Cool
get
down.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like we definitely got to get your thyroid checked.
I actually watched your video on that a while back, and then thought, oh yeah, I'm kind of between primary care doctors right now, and I have that on my list of, I got to get in to see somebody new, and that is the first thing that has to get checked.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Joy, this has been a joy to speak with you, to hear your real experience having a long-term chronic autoimmune condition and having to take prednisone. Like, you have no choice. If you don't do it, like, you can't see, right?
Oh yeah, I have pictures. I don't know if I probably showed you pictures
Yeah.
a while back of what I looked like when my eyes were wacky.
Yeah. That you like, if you don't, you can't see. And so you have
Yeah.
to do it. So if you have to take prednisone, what can we do? And you've shared with us dozens of ideas of what we can do when we're on prednisone and want to take things into our own hands. And that's what makes you a prednisone warrior, truly. Like, you're a prednisone warrior because you're not just sitting back and letting the side effects happen to you. You're doing everything you can through your diet, through taking supplements to counteract the side effects. So congratulations for like not letting those hard things to knock you down. Thank you for your example.
Thanks for that, for making that for me, because I don't think it exists anywhere else. And I'm just glad that after you probably popped up on YouTube. I found you when I was searching for information about prednisone, I'm sure. And I started watching your videos, and it took I don't know, I don't think I noticed that you had a supplement right away, but as soon as I did, I thought, oh, I should get on this. And I told my sister about it. She takes prednisone for a different condition, and I think I'll stay on it, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Joy, for sharing your experience. And for all of you out there suffering on prednisone, if you need some help, you can get Nutrinize at nutrinize.com, and it will help support you in your journey. And if you're lucky, it'll help you lose weight too. Signing off as Dr. Megan as your prednisone pharmacist.